Todd, can you introduce yourself and where we are, what you do?
Todd Street. I'm 25 years old and I'm a real estate agent based in northern Tasmania, so we cover a lot of areas. Yeah, been on it since I was 18 and I'm 25 now, so yeah, been on it for a good 7 years, which has gone pretty quick, but yeah.
Why did you decide to become an agent?
Probably various factors. We grew up in a sales background, car sales originally, so third generation car sales. Started working when I was young, probably like 14 years old. I was working full time at a dealership in Launceston. Did that until I was 18, and then when I turned 18 I was pretty eager to get into real estate. So I actually brought my first property, not thinking about becoming a real estate agent myself at all, but I brought my first property, dealt with a few agents at the time. Didn't have the best experience, I think probably because I was so young they didn't take me serious, but I suppose being young in sales myself, I always took everyone serious on face value. So I didn't have the greatest experience when I brought that property, and I was quite easygoing in most ways because I'd already worked in sales, so I wasn't difficult to deal with. I didn't think I was. So I thought, maybe it's something that I should consider for a career, because I'd been in car sales and the family had done that, and our papa always said that he wishes he'd do real estate and he never did it. So I did my license. Yeah, got that done in about 2 or 3 months. That was a pretty quick process, which was interesting. So before I knew it, I was only mid 18 years old, so 18 and a half roughly, because you have to be 18 to get your license anyway, it turns out, so it was probably good timing. And then I started from there. So by the time before I was 19 I started in real estate, so I was still 18 I was, and then I've been doing it ever since. It's been great. Yeah, I think coming from that sales background helped massively, especially being young. Getting an 18-year-old to sell your home is a really big thing. A lot of people said, you're going to be too young, people aren't going to trust you, you haven't got the experience, and that obviously was the case for a little bit. It took a few months to get the ball rolling, but I think if you're being yourself and you're honest and authentic and you can prove that you're not here to do the wrong thing in most ways, you're going to go a long way. Don't lie. And I think that's been a big one for real estate agents. We haven't got the best rap. But after that, it just went fine. The first 6 months to a year was difficult. And then probably a year into it, which would have been in 2019, that would have been, things started going really well. Here we are now, it's 2024. Haven't looked back since, and every year sales have had growth every year, which is pretty cool. It's been great.
You've talked about your journey. Can you talk a little bit about Key2 and how that works? Is it franchise or?
Yeah, Key2 is privately owned, which is pretty cool. So we're not a franchise. We'll ask that question because we're quite big and we do a lot of sales, but it is privately owned. Ananda and Kate are the actual owners of Key2 Property. The first office opened was in South Launceston. That would have, I don't know the exact year when they opened. I think it was 2014 or 15. I'd have to double check that. And then, they were quite experienced. Had been doing it for some time before that had been. And then, the agency went really well. I think within a couple of years, they were the leading agency for northern Tasmania. That was pretty impressive. And then I originally started my career at another agency and did about 1.5 years there. So I've been with Key2 since I think 2020 it would be roughly. But so privately owned, which is great. We've got our office in Launceston, South Launceston to be exact, and then our office in Deloraine, which is where we are today. So good office.
Can you talk a little bit about how, if it's privately owned, how the numbers work, or how you get paid, or agents get paid, or how that works?
Yes, definitely. Probably an interesting question. A lot of people probably don't realise, but as an agent, we're on commission only, personally, so we don't have a weekly wage. So basically, as the agency owner, they use the branding as your footstool to help you get out there, and a lot of people obviously want to see a brand they know and trust, which is important. As an agent, I'm commission only, so we don't have a weekly wage or anything like that. We basically run our own business within a business to some extent, which is great because it gives you flexibility. I'm not one that I've always liked doing my own thing, so it works really well for me. A lot of people go, that must be difficult, but by the time you're settling a couple sales every week and a half, the it's fine. You get your general turnover that's always happening. So it's commission only is what we call it. So it's not actually self-employed, it's commission only because we're still an employee under the agency. So that's how that works.
Can you talk about your team in the office in Deloraine?
It's pretty, I think I touched on this earlier, but it's pretty tight-knit little team we've got here. There's 4 of us, 3 full-time, then we've got Alicia who does a couple of days a week. Anne's been doing property management for a long time. How many years is it, Anne?
20 years.
20 years. Anne's been coming to this office for 20 years straight as a property manager, so that's pretty impressive. You don't get many property managers that stay in it for longer than a few years at a time generally, because it's a tough job. That's pretty cool. Anne's got a lot of knowledge on the area. People know her, so that's great. There's obviously myself. We've got Nick. So Nick works with me. We're both sales agents within reason. Nick does a lot of the back end stuff for us, the paperwork, things like that, which is really good because he's good at that stuff. He gets out, does inspections, and when I can't handle it, that's a good thing, having a team. When it used to just be myself, it was hard. You couldn't be everywhere at once. Having Nick's really good. He can go out and do buyer inspections and appraisals if I can't make it. That's good, and he knows the properties.
Can you talk about Nick's background?
Nick's been an agent for similar time to me within reason. We actually originally started working together at the first office where I worked, and then Nick had probably a couple year break, and he started back with me about 2 years ago, I would say. So Nick's background was straight out of school into real estate, I believe. So he's probably had a total of 5-6 years in it, I would say, which is great. He likes it. Yeah, he rocks up every day and he does his job, and he's happy and willing to do the job, so it's great. Makes things very good when you've got people that want to rock up and work and are into it. It helps.
You're based in Deloraine. Where do you cover?
Yeah, we're very broad range we are, so we're pretty all of northern Tasmania. Because we're not a franchise, there's no crossing of certain areas that you're allowed to cover, which is great. And obviously for me, my first 4 years in real estate, 3-4 years roughly, have all been based up Launceston way, West Tamar, Launceston area kind of thing, which is really good because you've got different markets within a market. You can travel 30 minutes and have a different type of market. So that was great because I've started up there, and then we got the office out here probably 3 years ago. So I come out here every day and do a bit out of here and still do a lot up Launceston way too. So I get a good general idea of what's going on in a lot of different suburbs, which is really quite handy because I said a market within a market, it changes quite quick, it does.
What would you look for in a real estate agent if you were selling?
A hard one. I don't know. We're definitely good at making ourselves look good. After being in the industry, you meet certain agents that you think, oh, geez, they're really good. Then you hear some things that it's like, oh, I don't know about that. So I've always thought I'm a pretty good, not a judge of character, but I've always thought that I could probably pick people off face value, but I've probably learned that it's not always the case. But if I was looking for an agent, personally, you've got to have someone you trust, obviously. That's a big thing, which, as I said just then, it's hard off face value. You think you can trust them, but it's also, you got to use it's a hard one. But someone you can trust that you feel like is honest. And there's also a fine line. Obviously, when you select an agent, we work for the vendor is where our money comes from. That's where the payment comes. And we've got to represent the vendor, but at the same time, there's that line of treating a buyer with respect. And if you can't get your buyer's trust, you're no good to your vendor at the same time, because a buyer has to trust you and feel like, hey, Todd's got my interest at heart as well. And there's a fine line with balancing that, because some buyers want to ask questions that you can't really give them an easy answer to, and they might think that you're playing the hard card or you're just holding things back from them, but there is a fine line there. So I suppose, looking for an agent, someone you can trust and you feel is going to be honest with you at all times. And you find, there's a lot of things that it could be, but property might not have any inquiries, and the agent tells you, oh, there's people inquiring, but they can't show you the inquiries because they're just trying to keep you happy when there's no one on your property. So there's a lot of things that go on within the industry. Yeah, it's a hard one, and you can't pick out faults in other agents either. It's just let things be and let people make their own decision at the end of the day.
Do you have suggestions for people who are looking to buy? Any tips?
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of people come to us wanting to buy places, but they don't know what they want themselves. We can't help you if you don't know what you want yourself. And I suppose from our avenue, we've got plenty of time to deal with people, but at the same time, if you can come to us and let us know what you want, we then obviously take your inquiry a whole lot more serious. And it's not that we don't have time for you, but it's no good us trying to put you in the direction of properties that we think are suitable when you're not sure what you really want yourself, because we just put you in the direction of something you're not going to like, or it's not going to work. So you just find yourself hitting a bit of a brick wall. But I suppose as a purchaser from our avenue, if you need finance, figure out where your finance is at. Go see a bank or a broker, get pre-approved, know what you can and can't loan, because that's a big one. Especially in the past couple of years, it's fluctuated a lot. Some people come to us and say, oh, I was pre-approved, but it was 2 years ago. And they say, we're still fine. But we know in the last 2 years that somebody could probably loan 600,000 back then, just this is off the cuff, probably could now only loan 400,000. So there's a big difference there, and people think that it's all rosy, but then they go back to the bank and seem like, oh, we probably can't buy a house for 600, we probably need to spend 400. It's like, that's going to change things a lot. I think as a buyer, and I think it's fair enough too, because I've had my personal experience as a purchaser with agents, that agents can be difficult, but I think that persona of agents, some buyers treat us, they very rudely, they treat you like as though you're lying to them all the time and you're just trying to do the wrong thing, and we don't like that either at the same time. It's like, hey, it's not going to get you anywhere if you come to us and you don't treat us with respect at the same time. It goes both ways. So I think as a buyer, yeah. And some buyers don't tell us much either. They think they play their cards close to their chest, but transparency is really good. Talking, communicating is very big. Communication is key. So tell us everything that you've got going on so we can try and help you.
Is there a sort of a typical buyer in Deloraine and Westbury area? Retiree, young families, that sort of thing, or interstaters?
You get a real mix of them. It's hard to put a finger pinpoint exactly what you get because some people do try and put them into a certain basket. Yeah, I wouldn't say so. You do get, people have your general downsizes. You get the odd investors have gone quiet over the past couple of years compared to where they were. But generally speaking, you got big farmers, a lot of farmers around Deloraine and Westbury area, so you get often farmers downsizing, retiring, things like that. First home buyers, yes, probably more Westbury area. I find Deloraine's a bit in between Devonport and Launceston. So you find that often a lot of people in Deloraine area that you probably sell to, if they're first home buyers, they're probably really local to Deloraine, whereas you probably don't get many first home buyers from Launceston or Devonport coming to Deloraine because it's a bit far to what they think they want, which is not far at all, but to what they're used to it is. Yeah, and then, as I said, the odd investor, otherwise just families as well. You get families that are local families or families from out of state. You do sell a bit to people from out of state that come to Deloraine. I think quite often you have people that you've dealt with and they've travelled through Deloraine because it's on one of that's the main route from Devonport to Launceston. So they get off the boat, they come over with a caravan. It could have been 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago, but they often say, "Oh, really, Deloraine or Westbury?" That's interesting. So obviously it offers a lot as a town. Deloraine does. I think in comparison, for me, coming from originally Launceston area, this is where touching back on having different markets. It's great because you can pinpoint people to Deloraine and go, "Hey, I know you've looked down West Tamar, but have you considered Deloraine?" It's not a very known suburb to people that aren't from here, so they don't know a lot about it. But if you can explain it and put them into Deloraine, it makes a big difference. So a lot of our sales do come from out of Deloraine. It could be someone that's been looking up Launceston, and that's the good thing about our office because we've got a Launceston office as well, and we don't have boundaries. So we have a lot of buyers that come in through there, and then we filter them out to here, and yeah, they end up turning into sales.
Is it taking longer to sell at the moment than usual or than before, or is it shorter, or what's the time, the duration?
Definitely longer. Properties always sell. You can have a good market, a slow market, however you want to refer to it as, but properties always sell. It was quiet back in 2018 and we still sold properties. The biggest thing is price reflective. If people don't see value, they're not going to buy. There's an old saying, if you're 2 to 3% out on your listing price, you won't have inquiries. And it's very true. Like I've had it time and time again where you look at things and that hasn't sold, and then you adjust the price and then you have a buyer. So pricing is your biggest thing, especially when you're in a good suburb. You can't, like a lot of people go, "Oh, it's just a suburb, it's quiet at the moment." But if you're in a good suburb, there's always buyers, and these are good suburbs. It has slowed off, but if you do the right pricing and the right marketing and you funnel your buyers for the right avenues, you will still sell. Our average days on market is probably maybe gone close to double. I think it was probably 30 days on market, and it's probably now 60. But in comparison to other people in the area, our average days on market are probably half what theirs are. So we do turn them over quicker, but we also like to look at that and think our prices are upfront and honest. I think a lot of times people have expectations that aren't achievable, and rather than just trying to keep you happy and say, yeah, we'll get that, we're a little bit more upfront and say, look, we understand you want this, we can give it a go for you, but it's probably really at this mark that you're going to sell. And that way no one leaves unhappy. Yeah, just being upfront is really good.
You've been in the industry for a few years now. Has it changed much?
Definitely, yeah. As when I started, it was steady. The market was not active. It was similar to what it probably is now within reason, maybe a little bit busier than what it is now. But yeah, there was not, you'd have open homes on open homes and people not coming through, adjust the price, then it sells. Whereas then we had that probably 2020 period where things went very quiet. People didn't know what was going on because of COVID and all that. That was touchy. So that went quiet in 2020 for a period. I can't remember exactly how long. It might have been a few months that it really went quiet. It was very gun shy. Things still sold, but it was just not like they were. And then probably must have been 2020, 2021, that period where it was a bit quiet like that. And I think end of 2021 was when it started taking off. Mid to end of 2021 is when it boomed. You couldn't, yeah, it was ridiculous. The phone, you put a property up online and the next, you could put it up online at 6 o'clock at night and your phone would be calling straight away. You get up the next morning, look at your phone and you had 5 email inquiries on the property. And
was that just from Tasmanians or?
Yeah, it was everyone, yeah. A lot of people like to say, a lot of out-of-state people, but to be honest with you, you do find that probably 80-90% of our sales are still to local Tasmanian people. which is pretty cool. The out-of-state market doesn't, a lot of people try and blame, the people from out-of-state are coming down and pushing our prices up. It actually doesn't happen as much as what you think. You might have them, but are they the ones that actually end up buying the property? Sometimes no. They might make offers, but they're not always the ones that are successful. But yeah, so in 2022 was when it really boomed and went crazy. So we've experienced that, and that was just, you'd have a property up, first open, probably have 20, 30 people come through. You'd have 5 to 10 people making offers. A lot of people thought for us it was great, but personally I didn't like it. It was just a headache. You'd put 4 properties online that week, and then you got 4 open homes that Saturday. You've got 40 offers you're trying to contend. You've got 40 people wanting to probably make offers, and then you go through a few and sift through the ones that obviously are ready to go pen to paper, and it was just too much. It was too rushed. You couldn't have that personal communication with people as good. Obviously we did our best, but it was just, So to be honest with you, a lot of people I think now come to us and go, you got to work for your money now, and they say it in a smart way, and I'm like, hey, it's actually better. You have more time with your purchasers and your vendors, so you can connect with them more. And when the result's done at the end, they feel like you've worked more too. They're happier. They're like, oh wow, my house is finally sold. So you get that bit more of excitement in it, which is great.
You're relatively young in the industry. Have you had many challenges? You talked about it was difficult in the first 6 to 12 months.
Yeah, definitely the first 6 to 12 months, and even still there was challenges after. Even still now I have challenges. There's a challenge every day. I think, your first year is hard because you're trying to learn the different terms of everything: vendor, purchaser, tenant, landlord. They're just the standard ones, but there's a lot to learn and consider, and it takes a few years to get your head around all that stuff. And obviously we play a big part in doing the contracts, whereas obviously in some states the vendor's lawyer or solicitor will draft up their contract of sale, whereas in Tasmania we basically do that. You can have it reviewed by your conveyancer or a solicitor, but we essentially draft it. So there's a lot of learning around that, making sure the contracts are done right, because if something's worded wrong or a time frame's not right, it can really quickly put people in positions that could get tricky. Yeah, being young, that was a good learning curve. But at the same time, I think being young's good. I like learning stuff. If I'm interested in something, I'll really delve into it. Even back when I was 18, I didn't go to school. I was homeschooled my whole life. I did a few years at school, at Launceston Christian School, and essentially from there it was home. We didn't do much homeschool either. We were on the farm, growing up, going around riding bikes, having fun. So even for me to be 18 years old, essentially not have a school background, doing essays, things like that stuff is nowhere in my eyes. I never did any of it. But to be 18 and to pick up that licence of being your property representative licence, normally that takes people 6 to 12 months. I did it in about 2 months because I was keen. I'm like, I'm doing this, so I started it every night and got the licence. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, being young, I think I've overcome most of them challenges now. And being around for 7 years or so, most people know me now. They can see that we know what we're doing. Yes, we're young, but we understand how to get a job done and what we're here for. So yeah, it's good now.
What do you see in the future for yourself and this area?
Deloraine's got a lot of growth. I think being that connection between Launceston and Devonport, it's that halfway point. Westbury's a great suburb as well, but Westbury hasn't got all the services that Deloraine has. So I would say that I think the growth is going to be there. It's obviously grown a lot lately, but I think getting the suburb out there more is important. Marketing the suburb. Deloraine's been quite closed off to Deloraine people only for a long time, I'd say. So with modern technology, realestate.com these days, a lot of marketing is AI and it's targeted. So I think in the future, I think it's going to get better. I think Deloraine will be marketed better as a suburb as well. At the moment, if you go on realestate.com, it's our largest platform. Deloraine comes under Tasmania Central Region. It's not a great search bracket. Most people look under Launceston Greater Region, Devonport Greater Region, or Hobart Greater Region. So we're trying to incorporate Deloraine into Launceston Greater Region if we can as a search. So I think Deloraine's got a lot of growth. The street itself has a real range of shops, knickknacks, bakeries, cafes, and that's important for a suburb. And Deloraine's quite diverse in its culture, so you've got a real mix of Christian faith and backgrounds. You've got bushies, you've got hippies. There's just a mix of everyone out here, which is really good. And for the market too, because I think these days people want to connect.
And what about yourself?
I think as an agency, we've had a lot of growth. We've been here for 3 years. I think there's a fine line between keeping the service good and doing too much. So there's only a small team here. We've only got 4 of us in our office, but we're all pretty connected. And I think as an agency, we just want to keep the service up and keep selling. I think the biggest thing is selling the houses that we do.
Do you have any favourite sort of properties that you like?
Not necessarily. Coming from a farming background a little bit in our family, I do like the hobby farms, getting out of town, then ones are a bit more exciting. But otherwise, just general stuff. I like to think that we sell anything and everything, the cheap stuff, the dear stuff, the blocks of land. I get excited about them all within reason, but yeah, probably getting out of town is always good, going to the small farms, things like that.
What's your favourite part of Deloraine or Westbury?
Good question. Deloraine, because of just your street frontage is great. It's always busy, there's always people to talk to. You walk outside, you go to the bakery, you go to the cafe, there's people around that you talk to. And I like connecting, I like talking, I'm very social. I like that part about Deloraine. So it's probably not something in particular in Deloraine town itself, it's just the people. You go outside and you chin wag and you've lost half an hour. It's good. Whereas Westbury's a little bit different. Westbury's got a lot of history as well. So I like Westbury and its history. You've got some interesting old buildings there which are pretty cool, and just your outside properties around Westbury, your small acreage ones, have got a lot of character. You got originally where the convicts come in and they've got the wells and things like that. A lot of them are still there in the properties. So you get some pretty cool history in Westbury in the way of property. So I do like that.
Okay.